17-year-old Stan Davies was running on fumes, caffeine pills, and sheer terror. He hadn't slept more than an hour at a time at 4 bays. He knew the rules of Springwood. If you fall asleep, the man with the knives for fingers comes to play. Stan had found safety in an antique shop during the waking hours, hiding in the back amongst the dust and forgotten things. That's where he found the box. It called to him, an intricate cube of lacquered mahogany and shimmering brass filigree. It felt heavy, cold, and strangely comforting. It promised a different kind of oblivion than the one Freddy offered. Exhaustion finally won. Clutching the box to his chest like a teddy bear, Stan slumped against a crate and drifted off. The transition was instantaneous. The dusty shop dissolved into steam and red light. The smell of old books was replaced by the sulfuric stench of scorched metal and rotted meat. Stan was in the boiler room. "Bad little monkey sleeping on the job," a voice rasped, sounding like rusted gears grinding together. Stan whirled around. Freddy Krueger stepped out of a gout of steam, his dirty red and green sweater hanging loosely on his burned frame. He held up his right hand, the 4 razor blades on his glove shinking together musically. "Please," Stan whimpered, holding the box out defensively, "just let me wake up." Freddy laughed, a wet, hacking sound. He sauntered closer, his eyes focused not on the boy, but on the object in his hands. "Ooh, what's this? A present for Uncle Freddy? You shouldn't have." Freddy snatched the box. Stan immediately woke up in the real world, gasping, alive for another day. Freddy didn't care about the boy. He was alone in his dream domain, turning the heavy cube over in his clawed hand. He could feel the ancient, throbbing power trapped inside. It felt old. It felt nasty. "Let's see what makes you tick," Freddy sneered. He didn't need patience. This was his world. He willed the box to open. He ran a razor tip along the brass meridian, finding a hidden catch that no mortal fingers could have located. He twisted the top segment. The box didn't just click, it sighed, a sound of exquisite agony that echoed through the vast maze of pipes. The brass gears began to turn on their own, reconfiguring the cube into a star-shaped gateway. The heat of the boiler room vanished instantly. The steam froze into falling crystals of ice. The red light shifted to a sterile, oppressive blue. "Hey!" Freddy shouted, looking around as the walls of his nightmare factory seemed to stretch into infinite distance. "Who turned off the heat? I'm not paying to cool this whole neighborhood." A bell tolled in the distance, deep, resonant, and final. The far wall of the boiler room, a solid sheet of rusted iron, didn't melt or bend. It simply ceased to exist. In its place was a long corridor of blue light, smelling of incense and cold formaldehyde. 4 figures emerged. Leading them was a being of imposing stillness. He wore a black leather cassock that seemed fused to his pale, mutilated flesh. His head was a perfect grid of deep incisions, with a glittering silver pin hammered into every intersection. His black eyes held no malice, only an abysmal depth of terrifying experience. Pinhead stopped. He looked around the dripping, filthy environment of Freddy's mind with distinct distaste. "A crude theater," Pinhead said. His voice was a tectonic rumble, articulate and devoid of all warmth. "So much wasted imagination devoted to such petty cruelties." Freddy bristled. No one insulted his decor. He stalked forward, glove raised. "Who are you supposed to be? The patron saint of acupuncture?" Freddy cackled, playing to an invisible audience. "You're trespassing, pincushion. This is my playground. The entry fee is your soul, and I take tips in screams." Pinhead's expression did not change. He looked at Freddy as a scientist might look at an interesting but ultimately repulsive bacteria under a microscope. "We seek the one who opened the box," Pinhead stated. "We are the Cenobites, explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others." "Angels?" Freddy spat on the floor. The saliva sizzled. "You look like something I'd cough up after a spicy burrito. I opened your little toy. Now get out of my head before I turn you into a connect-the-dots puzzle." Pinhead took one step forward. The air grew heavier, crushing down with the weight of centuries of suffering. "You opened the box," Pinhead confirmed. His voice dropped an octave. "And we have such sights to show you." Freddy didn't like being ignored. He decided to teach this leather-clad trespasser a lesson in dream physics. "Sights, bitch, I am the sights." Freddy slammed his gloved hand onto a steam pipe. The entire boiler room warped. The pipes became massive, writhing, metallic snakes with fanged mouths lunging toward the Cenobites. The floor turned into a pit of boiling tar. The three lesser Cenobites behind Pinhead chattered nervously as the dream reality shifted around them. Pinhead did not move. He simply raised a pale hand, palm open. "Your reality is fluid," Pinhead observed calmly. "Ours is absolute." From the blue corridor behind him, the chains flew. They moved faster than thought. Dozens of rusted iron chains, tipped with wicked, gleaming hooks, erupted into the dreamscape. They didn't just fly, they sought targets with intelligence. The chains impaled the giant metal snakes, tearing them apart with the screech of tortured iron. Other chains plunged into the boiling tar, anchoring themselves to the bedrock of Freddy's mind, forcing the fluid floor back into solid concrete. Freddy's eyes widened as two hooks snagged his shoulders. It wasn't just pain. He was used to pain. It was the sensation of being restrained in his own world. "Hey, watch the merchandise! This sweater is vintage!" Freddy yelled, dissolving into smoke to escape the hooks. He reformed behind Pinhead, aiming a lethal swipe at the back of the Cenobite's neck. The blades hit Pinhead's flesh with a dull thwack. There was no blood, no scream. It felt like hitting cold marble. Pinhead slowly turned his head to look at Freddy over his shoulder. A single hook shot out from his own sleeve, snagging Freddy's wrist before he could pull away. "Is this the extent of your torment?" Pinhead asked, sounding genuinely disappointed. "Sharp metal and childhood fears. How pedestrian." Freddy snarled, his ego bruised more than his body. He needed to escalate. He needed to find what scared this thing. He tapped into the latent fears of humanity that he fed upon. He tried to morph into Pinhead's creator, into a mirror of his own mutilation, into the vast emptiness of space. Pinhead just watched the light show unimpressed. "I have known the embrace of the Leviathan. Your parlor tricks are meaningless to one who has transcended flesh." Pinhead gestured with both hands. The chains multiplied. They shot out from every shadow in the boiler room, a blizzard of iron. They snagged Freddy's arms, his legs, his torso. They pulled taut, lifting the dream demon off the ground, spreading him in a gruesome parody of crucifixion. "You exist only in the minds of children. You feed on fleeting terrors. We are eternal. Our suffering is a sacrament." The blue light from the corridor began to intensify, bleeding into the red of the boiler room. Freddy looked past Pinhead and saw it. The labyrinth. an endless cold maze of stone and despair stretching forever under a sunless sky. The sheer scale of its monotonous horror was terrifying even to him. "We will take you there," Pinhead whispered, his face inches from Freddy's burned visage. "We will peel back the layers of this charred persona you wear. We will find the small, frightened man beneath, and we will teach him the true meaning of eternity." The chains began to pull. Freddy felt himself being dragged toward the blue corridor. He felt the cold of the labyrinth biting at his essence. He was being evicted from his own mind. Freddy began to laugh. It started low, a rumble in his chest, and grew into a manic, howling cackle that shook the remaining pipes. "You don't get it, do you, Needle Nose?" Freddy choked out, grinning despite the hooks tearing at his skin. "You take things too seriously. Where's the pizzazz? Where's the punchline?" Freddy focused. This was his world. He stopped trying to fight the chains physically and fought them conceptually. He imagined the chains were made of licorice. They turned red and floppy, falling uselessly away. He imagined the blue corridor was a giant mouth. It shifted into a massive, grinning clown face. He dropped to the floor, reforming his body. He looked at Pinhead, his eyes burning with pure, chaotic malice. "You want suffering? You want eternity?" Freddy hissed. "Try listening to this forever." Freddy opened his mouth and unleashed the collective screams of every victim he had ever claimed. It was a sonic weapon of pure terror, a cacophony of thousands of dying souls screaming in unison. The sound wave hit the Cenobites like a physical blow. The three lesser ones covered their ears, writhing in agony. Even Pinhead took a step back, his stoic mask cracking slightly in the face of such concentrated, chaotic noise. The boiler room was shaking apart. The clash between Freddy's chaotic dream energy and Pinhead's rigid, infernal order was tearing the fabric of the nightmare at the seams. Reality was beginning to bleed through. Flashes of Stan Davies' sleeping face appeared on the walls. Pinhead raised a hand, silencing the screams with a gesture of supreme will. The chains retracted, coiling back around him like obedient serpents. He looked at Freddy Krueger, who was panting, his sweater torn, but grinning defiantly. "You are incompatible," Pinhead said slowly. It was an admission of failure, but also a judgment. "What's the matter? Too much flavor for your bland palate?" Freddy taunted, spinning his glove. "There is no order in you," Pinhead said, his voice dripping with disdain. "There is no exquisite suffering to be mined here. You are merely noise, chaos without purpose. To harvest you would be to pollute the labyrinth." Pinhead turned his back on the dream demon. He walked back toward the blue corridor, which was already beginning to fade, the rusty walls of the boiler room reasserting themselves. "Hey, we are done. I wasn't finished playing," Freddy yelled, furious at being dismissed. Pinhead stopped at the threshold and looked back one last time. "The box will be closed," Pinhead declared. "Stay in your small, warm sandbox, little man. Play with your frightened children, but do not seek the further regions again. You lack the discipline for true damnation." The blue light vanished. The wall sealed shut. The lamentation configuration on the floor folded itself back into a perfect, silent cube.
Freddy Krueger stood alone in his steam-filled kingdom. He was the undisputed master of his domain once more. He looked down at the box. He hated it. He hated the cold order it represented. He hated that the man with the pins had looked at him not with fear, but with boredom. Freddy kicked the box into the darkest corner of the boiler room. "Fucking critics," Freddy muttered, adjusting his fedora. He turned toward the camera, his burned face splitting into a wide, razor-filled grin. Now, where was that little piggy named Stan?